Yes, hello, my name is Niels Nicolaisen. I'm with Tacoma-Pierce County Health, and I was going to go over the benefits of septic operation and maintenance very quickly. I'd like to thank my coworker, Amy Pearl, who assisted with this presentation. So benefits of septic operation and maintenance. So why do we have septic operation and maintenance anyways? Well, we want to make sure your septic system is working properly. We want to make sure your system is working as originally intended or designed. The cheapest septic system you will ever own is actually the one you have now. We want to help you protect your investment. You want to get the most life out of your system when it is regularly inspected and maintained. Regular inspections can help find and correct small problems before they become major problems. This can help you save money long-term by avoiding costly repairs due to lack of maintenance, or in some cases might even help prevent replacement of your entire septic system. And we want to protect human health and water quality. Septic system is failing or malfunctioning can potentially impact your drinking water if your well is nearby, can affect your neighbor's property. Surfacing septic system can be a major health hazard to your family, pets, and friends. Failing or malfunctioning septic systems can impact the water quality of marine waters, streams, and freshwater lakes. So what are the barriers to maintaining your on-site septic system? Well, maybe it's you're unsure how my system works. On-site septic system types and how they work will be discussed later in the workshop. I don't know where it's located. How to find your as-built will be covered also later in the workshop as well. I'm not sure how often to service my system. Simple gravity, pump to gravity, or pressurized drain field systems should be inspected every 3 years, and the other types of more complex septic systems with pretreatment or proprietary components should be inspected annually. Those would be things like pretreatment, mound systems, and that kind of thing. And of course, there's also the cost of maintenance and possible fear of unknown problems found after those inspections. We understand that both inspections and repairs can be very expensive. Tacoma-Pierce County Health offers income-based financial assistance in some areas of Pierce County. There are also low-cost loans available as well for larger repairs and complete system replacements through other channels. Financial assistance through Pierce County Health is currently available in certain project areas. We currently offer financial assistance for routine inspections, tank pumping, tank riser lid installation, and minor repairs. Minor repairs would be things like such as replacing a cracked lid, baffle repair, tank repair, or small drain line repairs when they don't require a permit. We hope to have financial assistance available countywide at some point. Right now, we have financial assistance available in these areas: the Key Peninsula, Lake Taps, North Fork of Clover Creek Basin, Ohop Creek and Lynch Creek Basins, Swan Creek Basin, Salmon Creek Basin, and Alder Creek Basin. Hopefully you can see that map. It's kind of small, but that kind of gives you an idea of the areas that we're offering financial assistance currently. Other financial assistance options not through our agency include the Clean Water Loan Program from Craft 3. It provides affordable loans for septic repairs, replacements, or sewer connections in Pierce County. That's the contact information. Again, these are all on our website as well. But if you want to write that down or take a screenshot, you're welcome to. The USDA Rural Development Loan. The USDA Department of Agriculture provides loans in the rural areas of Pierce County for septic repairs through a Section 504 Rural Home Repair Program. You do have to be in what they would consider a rural area, but you can go to their website or call that number. They also inform me they will do minor repairs as well. There is sewer connection assistance available. If sewer is nearby and available for connection, Pierce County Public Works and Utilities Sewer Division provides matching funds to help connect properties with failing septic systems to the county's sewer system if the property is within a sewer service area. That's the web address for that. And another thing that we offer, if you're in an area where you're receiving notifications, we do offer inspection extensions. We want to be respectful of financial barriers homeowners may have, especially hardships caused by COVID. So we offer extensions ranging anywhere from 30 days up to a year. What you can do is you can either contact us by phone or email to discuss extensions. We'd be happy to work with you. If you have any questions about operation and maintenance or any of the financial assistance we offer or extensions, that's my direct email. However, the best place to go is probably to our main page under tpchd.org septic care. There's an entire website filled with information on operation and maintenance. Our financial assistance form is there. It explains the entire program. And that is the main number as well to call about anything about operation and maintenance. And with that, I will turn it over to the next presenter.
Hi, I'm Bob Suggs. I'm the technical lead for on-site septic system permitting at Tacoma-Pierce County Health Department. I've been here for 15 years. I was a septic designer for 5 years before that. So I'm pretty well versed in how to get a septic system on a property that's suitable for it. And I've seen a fair number of failures over my time. So we're going to go through just real quickly the basics of the different 4 types of septic systems and a little bit of how to figure out what kind of system you've got. And a little fun stuff at the end. We'll just a little bit about how to recognize if you've got an absolute septic system failure. So there are 4 general types of septic systems. We generally classify them as gravity, pressure systems, pre-treatment systems, and mound or above ground systems. A gravity system simply works as whatever water you give it, it goes out to that drain field. So in this, this picture here, number 5 is a septic tank. It's got 2 compartment septic tank. Whatever comes into a septic tank is just a settling basin, basically. We always say that the heavy stuff sinks, the light stuff comes to the surface, and we take the clear water out of the middle and send that out to the drain field. Some treatment does go on in there, but there's no oxygen in that system. All the oxygen has been used up, so it's completely anaerobic. Mostly it does settling, a little bit of anaerobic digestion goes on in there. So why is that important? Because eventually, if you keep giving it more and more food, it will pile up in there and you will have to pump it out, get it cleaned out. But remember, you're using 300 or 400 gallons of water a day. That tank's typically 1,000 gallons. Every 3 days, the water that's coming into that tank is moving out to the drain field. In this example, it's a gravity drain field. Whatever comes through this tank works its way out through, this is a distribution box, and out into this drain field. The drain field's a certain length depending on the type of soil and how many bedrooms your house is. So next system up is a pressure system. Same septic tank here. We do the same type of pre-treatment, which is anaerobic pre-treatment as a septic tank. We settle it all out. The difference here is that whatever water comes into a gravity system, whatever you give it, it goes out. If you give it 100 gallons a day, 100 gallons goes out to the drain field. If you give it 10,000 gallons, 10,000 goes out to the drain field. We'll talk about why that might be a bad thing later. In this instance, after it goes through the gravity tank, it piles up into a pump tank. The pump tank runs on a timer, and the timer tells the system when to give more water to the drain field. Now, instead of the water just going out to the drain field and going out and using only a small portion of the drain field like it does a gravity system, this is like an underground irrigation system. When that pump kicks on, this entire drain field, which may be uphill now because we've got a pump on it, this entire drain field gets water. Why is that important? Because now the water is being spread out over a much larger area, and so the soil doesn't have to work as hard. So if we don't have a little less soil, we move up to a pre-treatment system. Now you notice I've got this tank tipped sideways a little bit. This tank looks a little different than the previous tank. It's still a 2-compartment tank. The first compartment has a settling basin in it. The second compartment has an aerobic digester in it. So now instead of having a septic tank which just has anaerobic, which means there's no oxygen in there, this second compartment, we're going to inject oxygen in there. We get a whole different group of bugs growing in there. They clean that water up pretty darn clean. You're not going to drink it, don't get me wrong, it isn't that clean. But when you look at it, it don't smell bad. It don't really even look like sewage if this thing's working right. It looks like gray water, if you will. Again, we're going to go through the same distribution system here. Water's going to go over into a pump tank. The pump tank's going to pump that out. And in this instance, I chose to show a slightly different drain field. We could send that out to just a standard pressure system. I chose to show you a different type of drain field. This is drip irrigation. Drip irrigation comes to us from the agricultural world, where these little black dots in this line are little emitters that no matter what the pressure is that's going out from the pump, those emitters discharge the same amount of water per hour. It's just a different type of pressure system that's useful in certain layouts. If you really don't have good soil, you're getting down to your last bit, then we're going to go to a mound system. You've only got 12 inches of good soil here. You got water table at 12 inches. So in this instance, we're basically going to do the same stuff we did before, but we're going to build our drain field on top of the ground. So here we go. We got a same old septic tank. We got a pump tank. Some mound systems wouldn't use a septic tank. They may use an aerobic treatment unit in that second compartment like we saw in the previous slide. But the big difference here is that instead of our drain field being in the ground, our drain field's up here. It's built on top of the ground. We've got some depth of sand, depending on soil conditions. We've got a depth of sand here that we've built our drain field on top of the ground. That's if you've really got poor soil. That's kind of our last option. People will often ask me, well, what do I do what do I do? I mean, can I get a septic system on any piece of property? Not any piece of property. You got to have at least 12 inches of dry soil. If you don't have 12 inches of dry soil, then you can't put a septic system on that property. Okay. So your question, now that you've gotten a real quick overview of septic system types, you're going to want to know, well, what kind of septic system do I have? This website here, and we'll put this in the chat, edocs.tpc.org here, will get you this web page. In this web page, you can type in your address or your parcel number and pull up your as-built. If for some reason you might get multiple documents there, you'll get home sale documents and old what we call health letters, which were similar to home sale documents. But you're going to want to look through there and see if you can find something that says as built or record drawing. And that will give you a view of exactly what type of septic system you have. If you look at that drawing and you're still just not sure what it is, we're going to ask you to email Amber Peralta, and we're going to drop her email address into the chat. And Amber she's going to be our point of contact, and she's going to respond to some emails, and I'll respond to some emails, and Niels will respond to a few. If you've got specific questions about, hey, I'm looking at my as-built, I don't understand how to read this thing, send Amber an email. We'll get back to you in a couple of days. In your email, let us know when's a good time to get a hold of you, and we'll get back and go through your as-built in person, show you how to use it. If by chance this search engine doesn't come up with an as-built, there's this submit a public records request. That's where you do, and we'll get a human being will look for an as-built for you, because every once in a while, especially some of the older as-builts we have, they aren't very well organized by addresses and parcel numbers especially from like the 60s and 70s. Some of those aren't well organized, but give us whatever information you can, old owners' names, old addresses that you might have, and we'll put an expert on it that can dig that up for you as best we can. Septic failures. What do you do if your septic system fails, and how do I know my septic system failed? Well, this is a pretty good example. We actually put some green dye in this system, and quite often we will do that to help identify, if we've got multiple drain fields in a certain area, we'll put dye in somebody's house to see if we can get the dye to come out to the ground. So here we had some beautiful green dye. It looks a little radioactive. The most common thing of seeing a septic system fail is it comes to the surface. What causes, excuse me, let me back up to that. Septic fail. So what are some things that might show you if you've got it backing up in your house? If your toilets, when you flush the toilet, if it makes strange gurgling sounds, that's kind of letting you know that it's not flowing down the pipe like it should. It's starting to back up and gurgle. It's having a hard time getting the air out of the system. It tells you got problems coming. If you've got a pressure system, you've got an alarm panel. If your alarm is going off, that's kind of letting you know that, hey, I'm having a hard time pushing this water out to the drain field. If you just got some really bad odors around your tank, it really shouldn't smell bad. It shouldn't smell like sewage. If it does, you probably got a problem. If you don't have a problem now, you got a problem coming. And I always try to recommend folks, find out your problems early on. Maybe you can fix it. If you just kind of bury your head in the sand and go, gosh, I just hope it goes away. It won't. It'll just get worse. And then your chances of fixing it go down day by day. If you catch a problem early, you can probably change the way this thing's going. What causes a septic system to fail? Most people think lack of maintenance is the cause, and lack of maintenance is a huge cause. Honestly, in modern day, because we're, as a society, we do a much better job of actually going out and making sure we're doing our maintenance, it's becoming less and less of a problem. But if you're not doing the maintenance on your system, certainly that will cause it to be shoot. Anything man makes needs to have maintenance. Even the roads got to be repaved once in a while. So septic systems are the same way. Excessive water usage. If you notice your water bill goes way up, okay, especially if it happens like in one billing cycle, and you're not watering the lawn that much. You might have a leaky faucet. You might have a leaky toilet. You would be amazed at how much a single drip will add on to the water usage. Septic systems are designed to take a certain amount of water. If you overload them over a long period of time, they won't like that. Physical damage, that's the obvious one. You drove a great big truck over the top of the drain field and broke the pipes. They're not going to like that. Poor installation practices, especially on older systems, stuff that was built prior to 85, 87. Really, the philosophy was septic systems were just temporary until sewers come. That really was the philosophy of how we designed them back then. Well, look, the fact is there's many places in the county, sewers aren't ever coming. About 87, that's when we started doing a better job of engineering our systems and paying a little more attention to how big a drain field really should be so it can last forever. And with proper maintenance, the systems we design today with proper maintenance should last forever. Household substance, chemicals, wipes, all that stuff that you pour down the drain. If you use a whole bunch of bleach, if the bleach does a great job of killing all the bacteria, guess what? If you pour a gallon of bleach down your septic tank, you killed all the bacteria in your septic tank too. It's important to keep that bacteria. That's a living, breathing organism your septic tank is. And if you kill all the organisms out of it, you're going to start pushing solids out to the drain field. A biomat, too much of a good thing. A biomat is in the bottom of your trench. It's an active biological zone in the bottom of the trench. We're going to drop water down. It falls onto that soil. The soil's got microbes living in it, and it's going to consume all the bad stuff that we're giving it. Those bugs that are living in there, they love that stuff. They eat it up. And after it passes past them, it's clean water. The water that we discharge out of the bottom of our drain field, by the time it goes through 2 or 3 feet of soil, is perfectly clean. But if you get too much biomat, that can be a bad thing. And if you overload the drain field with solids, you give it too much food, they can't digest it, and your biomat will get so thick that it will actually plug the pores of the soil. Signs of a failing drain field. Again, I kind of talked about this earlier, slow draining plumbing fixtures, sewage backing up in the home. If you go out in the backyard and you got wet or soft grounds and it hasn't rained in 3 months like it is now, if you go out there today and you got a big green spot of heavy grass that's a foot taller than it is everywhere else, those are all bad signs. Yeah, so we talked about that already. All right, if you have any other questions, feel free to email me, or you can contact the septic system line at Septic Systems at tpchd.org. Contact us if you've got questions, mostly regarding installing new septic system, or if you've got a failure and you need some help, we're certainly here to help you out. Okay, and I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to pass it off to Paul.
Hi, I'm Paul Cushy. I'm a master gardener actually from Kitsap County, and formerly from Bonner County, Idaho. I've been a master gardener since about 2015. And in 2019, working with Kitsap, we started teaching, planting over drain fields, because we were getting lots of questions from some of our septic seminars, and somehow somebody in Pierce County got my name. So we'll see how we do talking about septic and drain fields and things here in Pierce County. So let's talk about planning. The first thing you need to make sure you do is you know the components and know their locations. And Bob talked about going online and getting your as-built and learning what your water budget is. That is absolutely one of the first things you should be doing. You need to know where those laterals are, where your D-box is, where your drain tank is, because you want to protect them from any kind of damage. You want to protect the soil from compaction. And when you get right down to it, you're going to want to choose your plants very carefully. So why bother with landscaping a drain field? First off, the system itself could be built on an area where there's erosion. So, planting will help mitigate erosion in the soil. It helps protect the soil. It also helps to make them more effective and more functioning systems. For the homeowner, your drain field may be right out in the middle of your front lawn, and that is not a pleasant place. So doing a little landscaping is really worthwhile. So knowing your components, you could have all kinds of systems, as they showed you earlier. You could have conventional and gravity, pump to drain, mound, chambers, drips, all kinds of opportunities. And these are a few pictures of some live pictures of some fields. But knowing where they are really helps you understand where to plant and essentially where not to plant, because you need to protect them from any kind of damage. And we always say that, a bad plant is worse than a shovel. Shovels can cause intermediate damage, but a bad plant can get right into the system and can plug up drain field laterals, can plug up tanks and cause you lots of money in the future. Number one problem from a gardening point of view is, for us, large plants, aggressive roots that get into your pipes, into your drain lines, into your lateral lines, and even into your D boxes. So they'll plug them up and the water doesn't get even distribution then across all the laterals of your system. So aggressive roots are pretty much a no-no around your field. Some things not to do: don't cover your ground, drain field or your tanks with material that restricts weeds, interferes with the oxygen transportation. This is a living, breathing system, and you'll hear us all talk about that more than once. Planting aggressive, shrubs and trees within 30 feet of your components is probably the safest rule that you can be working with, because plants with aggressive or woody roots are known to seek out water, particularly ones like willows, birches, even some maples. Those roots will be intruding right into your tanks, into your lines, into your pipes, and are going to cause you some issues. Some plants like wet conditions. and will migrate through the overly over wet soils. So it's important that your D-box is distributing moisture equally across the laterals. Also, don't plant plants that will obstruct access to your tanks, to your lines, to your D-box, to your processing equipment. Because you're gonna have to get at it. You're gonna have to get at it if you got some systems once a year, and we have already said once every 3 years is a recommended time to open up and inspect and potentially pump out your systems. So what do? You want to choose shallow rooted plants. Avoid woodies, avoid things that have strong woody roots. And the best way to know what's a woody and what's not is to look at the structure of the plant. If the upper structure above the ground is strong and stiff and it takes a heavy pair of clippers to prune it, below the ground, there are woody roots down there, and they are doing exactly what we don't want to have happen to the soil. Some plants, though, are beneficial because the roots can break down biomatter, can help with the transfer of groundwater, can help with cleansing, and can help oxygenate, but the strong woody ones don't do that. The best solution for all our drain fields is lawns. We really recommend you just plant a nice lawn out there. We will talk a little bit about alternatives. One of my favorites is an eco lawn, which has some little daisies, English daisies that pop up in it. It also reduces your mowing, because I hate mowing my lawn too. So anything I can do to be able to mow once or twice or 3 times during the summer and not have to be out there every week is delightful. But good lawns make for good drain field covers. But you need to be careful. Watering a drain field, overwatering a drain field is not recommended, especially if you have heavy clay soils. So water your lawns carefully. Don't use excessive fertilizers and weed killers. That kills the beneficial microbes that are in the soil and around your systems. You can dethatch, you can aerate to prevent compaction, but the best thing to do is not to create compaction. So be careful what you do with it. It's easier though to repair a lawn, and so if you ever have to do work on your actual drain field, it'll be cheaper to spread new grass seed out and rebuild your lawn than it will be to rebuild your fancy planting. These are some pictures of some lawn substitutes. These are some wildflowers on the bottom right. There's a mixture of lobelia and some other plants on the left, and the top is some clover that's been planted. Lawn substitutes work well. Just be careful, because they may not take the foot traffic or pet wear that you want to have in your backyard or your front yard. It may take long to recover from your system repair. Some of them can be taller. Wide down on Banner Road from my home, I have a gentleman that has a wildflowers growing all over his front lawn and his drain field, with some fruit trees on the perimeter. And sometimes you can't even see the lawn or the front of the house because those wildflowers get really tall. They can be patchy. They need to be spaced properly. They can fill in quickly, but they could need regular weeding. All depends on what you choose to plant. But wildflowers do work, and particularly some little meadow flowers. You can hide your components. You can paint them black or dark if you'd like to. You can do what the individual on the far right has done. They put mosaic on the top of their green tank tops to make it less obnoxious out in the garden. There's a potted plant sitting on top of a green lid, which helps hide. And then you can actually buy the covers to go over your tank tops. If you want to buy a plastic rock to put over it, which I think is pretty cool. And then you can plant around it, but again, be careful. Those Those look like some coneflowers and a few, and a little lobelia and a couple other things that are there, which work very nicely around your tanks and around your systems. But don't hide it too well. Don't cover with heavy permanent objects. You know, don't cover it with things like concrete or plastic sheeting systems. You know, soils need to breathe. Your tanks really need to breathe. And please keep them easy to access for emergencies. You know, avoid plants with deep roots. You know, in Kitsap County, we have a hard surface requirement of 10 feet away. So concrete, patios, things like that need to be 10 feet away from the tanks. I always get the question, can I put a raised bed or something on top of it? And that to me is just part of the hard surface. You know, don't put your greenhouse or things like that on top of your drain field either. So here's we'll show you a couple of pictures. This is a evergreen ground cover that works very nicely. This is on a list that I will going to make available. Can go across the top of your mound or on the top of your drain field. You can use some fescue, some mondo grass, and some other sedges out there to create small gardens. It works just fine. This is creeping raspberry over a mound system. You know, takes away the curse. You know, it's not deer resistant. So if you have lots of deer around, you're going to be feeding them, and you really don't want the deer walking all over the top and compacting the sand and the material that's in your mound system. But if you don't have a lot of deer, this can work pretty well. Here's a perennial that can grow in mass over and can protect the ground from erosion, but also lets it so you don't have to look at it in the future. Here's a beach strawberry. Some of you may be familiar with that. It is very aggressive, but is also a great low growing, you know, pink panda, or this one's the white version that can grow across over the top of your drain field. Works just fine. Don't have to mow it, but you're going to feed some deer too. Here's another one, and there's another one you can do. This is epimedium, and it looks a nice evergreen plant that can be across the top. That also grows in some part shade if you've got a shady corner part of your garden, of your drain field. So the question always comes up, can I plant my vegetable garden over the top of my drain field? Well, it's not recommended. I really should just say no. You know, it needs frequent watering. Heavy watering is not good for your drain field. You got to walk on it, so that's going to create compacting. If you're doing in-ground planting, you've got rototilling or double digging to change rotating your crops, yeah, you've got potential of damaging. You need regular access, you know, so you're going to be creating paths and compacting the soil around your garden, seasonal replanting. But most of all, this is a septic effluent, you know, system. This is a living, breathing system. And if you get a backup, if you have a problem, you're going to get human pathogens transferring up into your garden, and that's not what you want for your vegetables and things that you're growing out there. So my real answer is no, don't do it. Don't put raised beds over the top of it either. This really should just be grass and open to the sunshine, and let it do its job what it is built for, which is to process the effluent, you know, from your household. So because I know you really don't know what plants you can do, it really depends on your environment, you know, and what kind of a soil you've got, whether you've got hard clays, whether you've got sand, whether you've got sandy loam. We would recommend that you talk to your master gardener. It's there in Pierce County. I'm sure they have an on-site phone and access. We use our site called HortSense, which can help us identify plants. I'm going to flip through a list. Don't try and take notes. I've made this list available to Amber. She will make it available to you, so you can see some things that you might want to consider. So yes, there are a few trees, 6 to 25 footers: English hawthorn, glossy blackburn, blackhorn, you know, Sergeant crabapple, a few things. willow leaf pear that you can plant out there. Here's a couple of shrubs, some spirea, some mock orange, some cherry, things that can be grown to try and hide your tank lids, and even potentially even hide your risers, your inspection risers. There's some herbaceous annuals that you can look at. Lobelia obviously works, petunias works, salvia works, some zinnias can go out there. Here's some more herbaceous perennials that can go out there. And this list again is available through Pierce County Health. Ground covers work great. Kinnikinick works great. Stonecrop works great. Thyme, wintergreen. Wildflowers, have at it. If you like your wildflowers, that'll be fun. They're just low growing and small root systems. And then here's some grasses. So pick the list up from Pierce County, and you'll have some fun figuring out with your gardener, with your local nursery, what you can plant. Rachel, it's up to you.
All right, thanks, Paul. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and answer some questions now. So just a reminder, if anyone has any questions, please put them in the Q&A versus the chat. Things tend to get a little lost in the chat. So I am going to head and start with Carrie. And she is curious if they can request to be added to the sewer. Bob, Niels, Paul, anyone have an answer for that? Might need some clarification.
I'll give it. So
Okay.
it depends on if sewer's in your area, of course. If you've got sewer out front, contact your sewer utility. They'll almost always be willing to let you connect up if they're out in front. Now there are some instances where the sewer utility has been built out and they're kind of maxed out. They really don't have any more capacity in that line, but those are pretty small areas. They're not all that common. So that's a question for the sewer utility, not necessarily the health department.
All right. Then the next question is from Cheryl. Is it okay to place raised garden boxes over the drain field? What is the weight limit?
Please don't. That is not the appropriate place for gardening of any kind, raised beds or in ground. And it's not just the growing, it's the compaction, it's the paths, it's the fertilizer, it's the stuff that you're going to be putting into your raised beds that's going to percolate through the soil and potentially impact your drain field system.
All right. And then the next question is from an anonymous, and their question is, how do you remove blackberries from a drain field?
Go ahead, Paul.
I don't know how, blackberries have notorious root systems. I'm imagining that that this is a system that blackberries have been there a long time. If you really have a bad infested lateral, you may have to do repair. Don't know any other way around it. You can't pull them out. You can dig around, 10, 15 feet around your drain field and try to stop the infiltration. But if you've got them in your laterals now, I don't know of a chemical. Do you, Nels or Bob, do you know of a chemical that you can put down? I don't know of one that'll take care of blackberry.
Well, not that's, it'd be pretty harsh chemical.
Yeah, you have to be pretty harsh to do it.
And
There are the blackberry. I mean, the blackberry stuff that you put down will kill everything is the problem.
Right.
Honestly, the only way I've seen when you've got a really heavy blackberry infestation, my best stuff that I've seen people do is first go out and mow it down, cut it down as low as you can, and then put the minimum amount of whatever Roundup-ish type stuff you can put on it to kill after it comes up in the spring and it's really actively growing, and then it seems to die a little easier that time of year. And then you can come back in after that stuff's dissipated and reseed it, try to reseed it with grass. I've had some in a previous house that I had some blackberries that kept coming up in my lawn because I had a big forest next to me, and they would just propagate in from the forest. If you just keep mowing it, and you really do keep mowing it, if it's in a grass area, blackberries will eventually give up. Because they got to have something, so they will eventually give up. But boy, it's a thermonuclear bombs. Something. There's nothing easy. I mean, they're invasive species. They're not native here, so anything not native is usually harder to kill, it seems.
Yeah, but if they're already really heavily forested over the top of the drain field, you're already in trouble.
Yeah.
And I would hope that you've got a backup location that you may have to be putting in a secondary, set.
The one thing I would recommend not to do, a lot of people will come in with a tractor and try to plow them off. Typical drain fields, I think there's another question down here later. It's about how deep is my drain field. You're going to have to look up your as-built for me to tell you exactly how deep, but most modern drain fields are less than a foot deep.
Yep.
They're right around the top of it's about a foot deep. And they could be as little as 6 inches deep. So if you go in there, you got blackberries and you say, hey, I'm going to come in with this tractor and blade this thing off. Well, you might blade off your drain field right along with it. So I really don't recommend people, and typically you're going to hire somebody who doesn't really know what a drain field is anyway. He's just some guy with a tractor. He doesn't know what he's going to do, and he's going to come in and make a mess of things for you. So I hate to recommend the chemical stuff, but for blackberries, I don't know anything other than napalm that'll get rid of them, really.
Sorry, I was muted. Next question is from Kendra. She's curious about regrading and leveling. Her yard needs to be regraded, but she's curious about the septic system and doesn't want to mess anything up.
I guess I'll take that one again. That's kind of a design phase thing. So, yeah. So first thing is look up your as-built and figure out exactly where your drain field is. And if you're not real good at reading blueprints, get your septic guy that you would hire to do your maintenance. Have him come out and look at your as-built and lay it out on the ground and go, hey, your drain field's right here. Hopefully you've got a little more modern drain field and we can tell you exactly how deep of it is. If you've got a drawing from the 70s, 80s, even early 90s, we might not be able to exactly tell you how deep that system is, but your O&M professional, your septic maintenance professional, they can tell you how deep it is, and they can tell you, yeah, you can come in here and be careful. And I'm going to say, I cannot stress, do this. If you're going to remove any soil from your drain field, have a septic professional do it. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I have done septic repairs because the landscaping guys came in and decided they would put in a sprinkler system through the middle of the drain field, or they've decided to put in a block wall and bury the drain field, which if you bury it too deep, it suffocates it. Or they, like we talked about earlier, they just peel off too much material and they peel it off until they dig up the drain field. It happens all the time. So if you're going to do something like that, get a septic professional out there that can tell you exactly where it is, exactly how deep it is. And if it's really going to be close, have them do the landscaping in the drain field area.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, the next question is from Carrie, and she's curious if wood chips are okay over the drain field.
Wood chips are meant for weed control, and if you pile up too many wood chips over the top, you're going to do the same thing you would if you added a whole bunch, added 6 or 8 inches of soil. You're gonna smother the system. I wouldn't do it.
Okay. Okay, the next question, this person is looking to buy a home that may be on a cinder block septic tank. They're unable to locate an as-built on the health department's website. If it's a cinder block tank, are they even allowed anymore? And will that need to be replaced as a condition of the sale?
Well, go ahead, Niels.
Yeah, I was gonna have you answer that.
Okay, well, I'll answer it
Yeah, I
then. That's
mean,
fine. Yeah.
you're working in the,
Yeah, I'm
with the
the
repairs more than I do,
sure.
so.
So cinder block tanks, I don't think that we've ever actually approved a cinder block tank since we've been taking applications. Doesn't mean that there aren't some out there that are still useful, but every cinder block tank I've ever seen was a leaking tank. And if it's a leaking tank, typically we can patch or repair tanks, but you can't really patch a cinder block tank. It's just you're playing little Dutch boy with your finger in all the cracks. I mean, it's impossible. So you're probably looking at, if I was looking at really wanted that house, just pencil into the offer that you're probably going to end up putting in a new septic tank. Before I put in a new septic tank, have somebody camera locate the drain field, make sure there actually is a drain field to connect it to. What we really don't want to do is have you put in a brand new septic tank and then find out, oh, gee, there was only 5 feet of drain field on the other side of that. And now it doesn't have anywhere to go. Old leaking septic tanks have a tendency to be, that was your drain field. It was just leaking out of the tank. It may not have a drain field. So word of the wise, if you're getting ready to buy this house, probably pay the money to have a septic professional come out and do a drain field locate, find out how much drain field you got, and plan on you're probably going to have to replace that tank.
Bob. Okay, the next question is from Krish. I think is how you pronounce their name. They said their drain field is in between trees. They're curious if roots would break in.
Yes. I think you probably have in Pierce County some locations where the drain field's only choice was to put it between the trees. And it's a drain field asking for trouble in the future. But at the time it was probably the only choice, for the installer, and it was probably approved. There are some around here. So yes, the trees are going to get in there. It may shorten the life of your drain field, and there isn't much you can do about it.
Well, I'd like to second what Paul said. I have never seen if you've got trees and the limbs reach out and the limbs are overreaching your drain field, then
Yep.
you almost for sure got roots that are in your drain field. One thing that always seems to work well with people is explain to them that, guess what, trees are always doing. They're always looking for food and they're always looking for water. And even in the middle of this drought that we're having in the middle of summer, guess where there's food and water right now, even though it hasn't rained in a month, right over there in the drain field. And once one root finds it, he tells all his friends. And here they come. I mean, hey, there's water and there's food here 24 hours a day, 360 days a year. Come get it.
And the aggressive part of the root system is at the perimeter of the tree's canopy. So when you've got a nice broad tree out there, those roots right by the trunk are useless. It's the ones out at the canopy that are reaching out into the soil looking for more food.
So then I got a question on if there's a way to repair a drain field that's been damaged by a tree.
Oof.
You gotta, first off, I would have your drain field cameraed, so to understand the condition of your tank, understand the condition of your laterals. And then your installer can come back and tell you whether there's a way to, repair the laterals that need to be repaired. Yes, they can be repaired. Sometimes it means you're going to dig up a lateral that's been plugged, and the other three or four are fine. But that takes a permit, And that takes a design. So you need design engineer and you need an installer and people to do it right.
If Paul hasn't impressed upon you one thing is don't let trees grow near your drain field. They won't do it any good. Cut them down today, cut them down tomorrow, get an arborist out there and get them cut down. At least if you cut them down, the roots will stop growing. It won't get any worse. And a lot of times, if you can stop the roots from growing, if you can cut the tree down, make it stop growing. If it hasn't gotten too bad, you can clean the roots out of it. You can run a root cutter up the drain lines. You can do jetting and you can kill them back and it might be okay.
Yeah. Don't try it yourself.
No.
All right, so the next question is from Anonymous, and they are curious how long their septic system will last.
Depends on how well you take care of it. They could last 50 years, 60 years, could last the lifetime of the building, but they also might only last 4 or 5 years if you abuse it.
Regular maintenance.
Regular maintenance, absolutely.
It also has to do, I mean, as my slide said, how old is it? I mean, if it was an older system built prior to 87, again, remember, those systems weren't meant to last forever. They were designed as temporary systems. So you got an older system. If you don't use it very heavily, you don't have a full, you got a 3-bedroom house, you only got 2 people living there, or you're really being easy on your water, do your annual maintenance. We see older systems that are just keep poking along because they just don't get used very hard. So it's all about how you use the system and how you maintain it. It really is.
And I would suggest that if people want to really take care of it, they turn off their garbage disposals, put a screen in the drain, collect their food particles, extra food particles. The more food and things like that you put down, you're not feeding it. You're really harming it. The only thing that the septic systems are made to process are the 3 Ps. So, and we don't need to go there either.
There used to be a sign on a vessel when I worked aboard ship and it said, if it hasn't passed through your body, it shouldn't go in the toilet.
Right. And that's very true of septic systems.
Yeah. Septic systems are the same way.
Next question is from HD, and they are curious if bleach is used, is there anything they can flush in to improve the biome?
Yeah, HD, I'll answer that. So I think where you're going with that is, we talked about if you put too much bleach in the system, you're going to kill off the biome is what he's going with. And that's true. So how do I get that biome going again? Like everything that's in that septic tank came out of you. It doesn't need anything new. I saw another question in here somewhere. Anderson is asking about Ridex or other types of additives. And I think that's what we're talking about here too, is like, hey, if I've killed everything off, can I get it going again? Well, yeah, if you kill it all off, if you really knew you did something horrible to it and you killed it all off, yeah, I don't think there are any additives that I personally will recommend. I mean, we do have people will, for some septic systems, when we're getting them up and operating for like some aerobic treatment units, they like to have sewage in them. So they will actually get sewage from the sewage treatment plant and put it in and get it kick-started, if you will. But it really doesn't need anything other than what's passed through your body. So I'm going to go on and answer the other question about the Ridex. So the story I always tell people is there's a list of additives that the state maintains that are approved additives to put in a septic system. To get on that approved list, you have to prove that you do no harm. Parse my words very carefully here. You have to prove you do no harm. You don't have to prove you did any good. You have to prove you didn't do any harm. So take that with a grain of salt, if you will. I'm not a big fan of additives. I've certainly heard people who say, hey, I believe in it. I had a guy one time when I was a designer telling me how he put this additive, came in twice a year in a 5-pound bag, and he poured it in his septic system, and he never had to have his tank pumped. And I started listening to him, and he told me how much it was, and I kind of did the math. I was trying to work, but I was listening to him, and I kind of did the math. I go, so, you paid that much for that additive, that same amount of money, you could have just had this maintenance guy come out and look at it and have it pumped. And guess what? Then he's going to look at all the other things besides just the sludge in the bottom of it. He's going to look, hey, you've got an encroachment of a tree, or you've actually got a broken pipe, or this pump system, you got a wire that's loose or something. Yeah, I'm just not a big fan of those personally. And again, they don't have to prove they do any good.
Yep.
Next question is from Tanya. Do you know if other counties have EDOC sites to identify her type of site? She's in Grays Harbor.
I think it's, my recollection is that it's a state requirement that all counties post and maintain their records of install, records of building, building homes, building septics that are online. So I know Kitsap has a great system. I can go look at any property, around Kitsap and see the as-built, know the water budget, how many laterals are out there. So I imagine Grays Harbor has the same thing.
So the next question, this person purchased their home and they obtained a hand-built drawing, which is virtually unreadable. Shows 2 undefined lines without any measurements. They are curious if it's possible to get a better picture of their drain field.
I guess that one's for me too. Well, YC, I'll tell you, you probably got an old as-built, and all the old as-builts are hand drawn. And honestly, some of them were done by the installer. We call them red line drawings, where they got a design drawing and you can see that. And then they took a red pencil and they drew over the top of that. And then that was, quote, the as-built. Yeah, some of them are rough. If you got something like that, I'm pretty good at reading the tea leaves. Send me an email and I'll take a look at it and give you a call back and give you my best guess at what you got.
Next question is, can you bring in fill dirt and topsoil on top of the drain fields?
If this is for the purpose of doing some light landscaping,
Yep.
we've been telling people, a couple inches of sandy loam material spread by hand, carefully across the top of a drain field to fill in the holes, to fill in the bumps so it's smoother and you want to make a playground out of it, is perfectly acceptable. To back in a dump truck and put 10 yards across the top of it is unacceptable. And that's the extreme, but some people, that's what they want to do. So filling in, smoothing out, putting in some material that makes it easier for you to spread some decent grass seed out there and water it in lightly, to get it to grow is perfectly acceptable. Just don't pile it in there with a dump truck.
Yeah, I'll back Paul on that a little bit. Our rule of thumb is a drain field shouldn't be any deeper than 3 feet. And even that's honestly, that's a little on the deep side. We really want to keep septic systems shallow where they can exchange oxygen. The shallower, the better. You putting another foot of topsoil on top of it won't make it better. I won't say it'll kill it tomorrow, but it won't make it work better. So that's the best answer I think I can give you.
All right. So next question is from Krish. They're thinking of extending their deck. They're curious, how far should their deck be from the septic tank? Their current deck is 15 feet away from the septic LID.
What's Pierce County hard surface rules?
We don't really have any hard surface rules like Kitsap. We're pretty open-minded to it, actually. honestly, it's less about the tank than it is the drain field. I mean, if you put a post down 2 feet from the tank, it's not going to hurt the tank particularly. The most important thing is to know, well, where is my septic tank? Where is my drain field? Don't put a post on top of something. We have, in general, we will say you can't put your deck over the top of the drain field. But having said that, there are occasions we do let people, if they really know where their drain field is, they've actually gone out and located the laterals, and they're, depending on the width, if they're wide enough apart, and they can engineer it so they can put a post in between laterals, we've allowed them to do that. So there, I mean, in general, I'd say, no, don't do it. But if you really, really want to do it, well, we can push the limit. We can figure out ways to do it. It's just going to take a little more work.
Well, and I just remember the future. Well, if you put it out there and something's wrong, you're gonna have to take it down.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's a very good point, Paul. If it's a deck that's 6 inches off the ground, it'd be hard to do any maintenance under there, right? Septic tanks, we put tanks under decks, so, and we, make a hatch so you can get to it. But if the deck's 3 feet off the ground, okay. I mean, it isn't black and white on that one, I guess, for our standpoint is, there's a lot of ways you can win that game if you really want to. Working with a septic designer and a septic O&M professional to help you engineer that deck so that so the drain field's accessible and the tanks are accessible is the way to go.
I would echo that too. You can have your tank underneath the deck, but you have to kind of think in the future, and for regular maintenance, is it accessible? Sure, you can put a latch, and I've owned a system myself that was underneath the deck, and it was fine. It was kind of a pain because you had to latch and you could access it. But if you ever have to do a major repair, you might be you might be tearing your deck apart. So it's just something to consider. If you had to replace a tank or a component where they had, most of the time the components can come out through the lids, but just future wise, if you're going to build something over the top of any of your components, you may have to remove whatever you built over them. So something to think about.
Awesome. All right, next question. This person is curious if it's okay to have a chicken coop in the general area, not on the pipes, and use the drain field as their open yard area.
Don't know why not.
I was going to default to Paul. That's a good question.
That's just manure. They'll eat all the bugs and everything that are out there. They'll clean the grass down. So, it's like putting a machine out there to clean it all up.
Yeah, it would probably be best if they weren't so dense that they actually plucked out all the grass.
Yeah.
It won't be the end of the world if they do, but it would be best if there was still some grass, if it was part of their very large roaming area. It depends on how many chickens you were talking about, I guess.
Actually, sounds like a good use for a drain field.
Yeah, it's not bad. That would work. Yeah. At least you won't be driving over it. That's for sure.
That's right.
True.
The eagles will be fishing over it.
Okay, next question is from Lynn. My as-built is not very detailed in regards to location of the drain field. I have a general idea, but would like to locate specifically where my drain field is located. Do you recommend ground penetrating radar to diagram a system?
Wow, I'm impressed that you know what ground penetrating radar is. That's pretty cool. Yeah, you could do it with ground. I mean, if you just happen to have one in your garage, that's a great way to do it. I actually, in a previous life, used to run ground penetrating radars. But that's probably a little expensive for what you're trying to get done. But certainly it would, if you know someone's got one, that would work great. The most common, if you don't have a good clean as-built and you need to do a drain field locate, we do what we call camera locates now. All the cameras on a cable have gotten super cheap. Literally every major septic maintenance company has one of these. You go into the outlet of the septic tank, they run the camera down the line and they run it out until it gets to the end of a line. They turn it off, they put a locate beacon on that cable, and they follow the cable and they paint paint right on the ground. It's right here. If it gets to a certain point, it can't get around a corner, they'll stop at that corner, dig down, put an inspection port, which is not a bad thing to have in a drain field anyway, especially if it's an older drain field. It's just a vent that actually helps the drain field breathe a little bit. And then they continue their inspection out from there. So any of the septic maintenance companies can do a drain field locate. But gosh, if you got a ground penetrating radar, talk to me later. I'd let maybe we can get together. I'd go play with that thing again.
You got some work for them.
Yeah, that's quite a piece of equipment there.
Okay, if this user wants to convert or switch from a septic to a sewer system, they're curious where to start. Is there someone they can contact regarding the possibility of the conversion?
Yeah, whoever your sewer utility is in that area. I don't know where this, I didn't say where you're living, if you're in Pierce County or city of Tacoma or Bonnie Lake or Gig Harbor, one of the cities that has a city sewer. So whoever has your sewer system in your area, that's what you're going to talk to them first.
Right, next question is from Cheryl, and they are curious about gravel on the drain field.
Just talking about putting a gravel surface across the top.
I believe so.
I guess I'm trying to understand for what purpose, other than that's weight and probably not a good idea. It's porous, but I'm trying to figure out, other than last time somebody talked to me about doing that, they wanted to park their trucks on the grain field. So, I'm a little leery of putting gravel out there, telling anybody they can put gravel out there.
Yeah, I'm with you, Paul. Most people want to put gravel because they want to put a driveway. Driving over your drain field is absolutely not going to help it. It just compacts the soil. And I always tell people soil is like a sponge, right? The sponge you have in your kitchen. And it's, if you got that sponge on the table and you pour a little water in it, it fluffs up and absorbs that water and it gets bigger. But if you smash your hand down on top of that, like a truck tire, guess what? That sponge doesn't absorb much water. Soil's the same way. You drive over it, eventually loses its porosity, just doesn't absorb water. Yeah, if it's in a garden area, I suppose if you put a geotextile cloth, not plastic, but a breathable cloth over top it and a very thin amount of gravel, we think, Paul, I guess that would probably be all right.
Yeah, I just, for me, it just invites compaction.
Yeah.
Okay, next is from Lori. She's curious, what is the average cost for servicing a septic system?
I'll take that. Well, it depends on what you mean by service. If you're talking about just a typical, an inspection on an annual or every 3-year inspection, what I've seen, depending upon the kind of system you have, somewhere between 200 to 400 roughly, but we always recommend that you call at least 3 or 4 different service providers. I did actually have a couple of people ask about that. I posted in their replies our website that shows a list of all the providers that are certified to provide operation and maintenance in Pierce County. I don't know if you got that, but our website has a list of approximately, I think it's around 70 different providers. But that would be for regularly scheduled maintenance or required maintenance. If you need, same thing, if you need a repair or something's happening, you need to call someone. Again, call 3 or 4 different people. But for just standard, just show up to inspect it, see how things are going. Probably 200 to 300. Does that seem about right to you, Bob? I mean,
yeah, it's probably you probably have a better.
Gravities are pretty simple. It's you're paying really a lot. I mainly what you're going to pay for is their time, honestly, to inspect all the different components. And if it's a complicated system, they're going to have to pressurize it, check the alarm, pop a bunch of lids. So it's just time mostly. So.
All right. Next question is from Mel. And they are curious why their neighbor needs a UV light. I'm assuming this is in reference to a septic system.
Well, Bob, maybe you should answer that. 'Cause it probably had to do with their design and what was
Yeah,
required.
it's a design phase. So it's
Yeah.
a good question though. So remember when I was going through the different types of septic systems, gravity, pressure, pre-treatment. Well, pre-treatment systems, many pre-treatment systems, to get the pre-treatment that they need to get down the level of treatment, they have to have a UV light. Now, why do we have these different type of systems? I didn't really get into that. It's all about what depth of soil do you have. If you got really deep soil, you can have a gravity system. You have a little bit less soil, you get a pressure system. If you only got like 18 inches of soil, you're going to get a pre-treatment system, an in-ground pre-treatment system. If you only have 12 inches of soil, then you're going to get a mound system. So the reason he's got a UV light is because he's got very shallow soils, and the type of aerobic treatment unit that he's got in front of his system required a UV light to meet their treatment standard.
Okay, next question is from Christy, and she's curious if rhododendrons around the perimeter is okay.
I think I've been asked that question 3 or 4 times, and I think we've come to the conclusion that rhodies have a very small ball, they're very easy to transplant, and therefore 10 feet away from your drain field perimeter, absolutely fine. There is not going to hurt anything. Don't plant them on top of the laterals.
Thanks, Paul.
Hey, I don't know if the person is still online that was asking about Grays Harbor, but while we were away, I poked around to Grays Harbor's website. They don't have as-built online, but I posted in the chat their phone number and an email address that they ask you to call them or email them for your as-built in Grays Harbor.
Right. Next question is from Clara. She says that she has a damp ride, and it says to dump it down the toilet. That doesn't sound right to her, so she's curious if you guys know if that will damage the system or not. Damp rid?
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure. I'm not exactly sure what. It must have a typo there. I'm not sure what that is, but in general, like we talked about earlier, if it hasn't passed through your body, don't put it in the septic system. Sure, a little bit of food, waste, a small amount of food waste, but wow, I don't like. I mean, even a garbage disposal. I mean, you can put a garbage disposal on your house. You're just going to have to pump the tank more often.
Yep.
That's just the fact of the matter, is because the stuff you're giving the septic system is less digested than the stuff that came out of your body. So, in general, no, don't do that.
I wouldn't put damp rid. Damp rid's a desiccant for absorbing moisture. I don't know that it's going to do anything other than just,
Oh,
I mean, it's going to end up in the sludge, or worst case scenario, it'll pass through. If it passes through your tank, gets out into your drain field, that can't be good. So, I mean, I don't know what it's going to do once it gets in there. If it floats in the water, it's.
I agree, Niels. I didn't realize. I didn't know. Now that you said.
Yeah, it's kind of like white granular crystals. And
yeah, and
I don't think. I mean, it's like.
I don't think it. I mean, I would doubt that it's water soluble. If it's not water soluble, it's going to be a bad deal.
Yeah.
It turns into like a big chunk when it absorbs the water. It's just going to end up at the bottom of your tank and you have to pump it.
Yeah, it's moisture absorbing. Just when you're done with it, just put it in a garbage can.
I don't know. No.
Yeah. Solid waste is a way to go with
solid waste. Yeah, it's where it belongs.
All right. Next question is from J.A. I don't know if we've answered this yet or not, but he's curious, what is the best toilet paper to use for a septic system?
Oh boy.
The kind you use small amounts of.
Yeah.
There we go.
I don't know that there's a good or a bad toilet paper per se. I've heard, you know, some maintenance guys say they like this one or that one. I don't know that there's a consensus on it. But whatever you use, try not to use so much of it. It's just an added solid that has to be diluted, and it'll break down eventually. But don't use, we're going to say this again, don't use wipes, and don't use wipes, and don't use wipes. If you use wipes, put them in the garbage. And so somebody asked me, well, one time at one of these is, well, my wipes say they're septic safe. Well, there's absolutely no meaning to that term whatsoever. There's no government agency that's out there saying, oh, this is what septic safe means. What they mean is it'll flush down the toilet. It won't plug the line. But there's some great stories, even that the sewer municipalities are just cringing from the amount of wipes that come in, because wipes just don't biodegrade. They just don't. They last for years. They tangle up in the pumps. They clog up the septic system. They clog up the septic tank. Eventually you'll be digging them out of there. So
I'll have to send you guys a video that we've done on toilet paper here in Kitsap, because we've taken the stand that if the material, once it in water, if it just flakes apart and becomes really loose fibers, the fibers get into the drain lines and will plug the bio. So what we're telling people is, you can put your toilet paper in a quart jar of water, just swirl it around. If it stays together and either floats into the top or settles to the bottom, it's fine. If it sits there and disintegrates into little fibers, it is not good for the drain lines. Oh. And I thought that was a really interesting observation, because for years I've taken the other attitude, is you want it to fall apart. Well, they're saying let it settle, let it float. Otherwise, try not to use it. I'll send you the video.
Yeah,
it's fascinating.
Oh.
Include me on that video, Paul. I'd like to see that.
I will. No, I'm
that's
going
a
to send it to you guys.
That's a great answer.
I've got a couple questions. Curious on recommendations for dishwasher soap or washing machine soap.
As little as you have to.
Yeah, use less. Don't use powdered detergents. Powdered detergents have a lot of filler in them. Right. And that filler really isn't even water soluble. It will just pile up in the septic tank. It has a tendency to actually, as it goes into the septic tank, it has a tendency to settle out and attach to the inlet baffle. And you'll be calling, it'll plug up, and you'll be calling a maintenance guy to come chisel off this white block of soap that's stuck to the inlet baffle. I don't know what causes it, why it tends to settle there, but it just does. So liquid soap, more is not better. If it says use a cup, a half a cup will probably do it, unless you're really dirty. If you got really greasy clothes, you've been changing the oil and you poured the oil all over your shirt, okay, go ahead and use the full dose. But typically, you just don't need nearly as much soap as you think you do. They're trying to sell soap. Remember, they're not trying to get your clothes clean. They're trying to sell soap.
I've actually been told the same thing by appliance repair. If particularly if you have one of these, high efficiency front loaders, they'll flat out tell you, you don't need to use the recommended amount, whether you're on septic or not. It'll clean. So.
Of course, they're going to tell you to use a cup when a half a cup will work. You'll buy twice as much soap. Sure. And your clothes will be nice and clean.
Sure.
But your septic system won't really enjoy it any better. It won't make it work better. It won't be clean.
Yep.
Next question is from Celia. She's curious. So she bought a home that didn't come with an as-built. She wants to add a bathroom. She's had one guy pump say that it's gravity and is $1,000 or 1,000 tank. Only septics are allowed, and it's in Snohomish County. It looks like the house was built in 1977, and apparently there was a fire and some documents got burned. She's curious how she can add. How can I add without having to build another septic system?
Yeah, I saw this. I think she's posted this twice. I saw that similar question earlier. I think she wanted to add a bathroom to the system.
Bathroom.
That's what she wanted to do. Yeah. So, of course, I'm not in Snohomish County, but in general, I would say, we don't size septic systems by bathrooms. We size septic systems by bedrooms. If you want to have a 3-bedroom house with 3 bedrooms, so be it. We're not gonna slow you down. Now, if you don't have an as-built though, I'm assuming that you're going to bump out one side of this house to add this bathroom. It needs some place to be that you're going to add onto the house. You may have to have your drain field located, because if you're going to add on to the house, we want to make sure you don't add on over the top of your septic system. I've been to so many house sales where people have added on to their house without knowing what they were doing, and they've got the houses over the top of the septic tank, houses over the top of the
Yep.
all these things are bad things. Sewer gases coming out of the septic tank. You really don't want to have that over the top of your house, or over even over your crawl space, even for that matter. So did I answer all that? I kind of went roundabout, but I think I answered the question.
Yeah, I think the answer is, if it's a 3-bedroom house, you probably can assume that it has a water budget for 3 bedrooms, and you can have 3 bathrooms. It's the number of people resident in the home that's the issue, not the number of toilets you've got.
Right.
And the only way she won't know her water budget. So the best thing to do is to have the as-built redrawn for her, to scope it and go to the effort of getting it laid out, so she knows where it is, so they know what they can do. And then they can confirm that she's got 480 gallons a day, because she's got 4 bathrooms.
All right, last question is from Carrie. She's curious if there are green lids in the drain field or by the tank.
Depends on how big that lid, that green lid is. The 2-foot diameter green lids are over the top of your septic tank. But modern drain fields have a smaller Carson box. Let's see, how big is this Carson box? Is 6 inches, 6-inch lid. If it's a 6-inch lid, then those are at the ends of your drain field laterals. Sometimes if you got a pressure system, there's a square box green lid. It's probably 1 by 2, and that's over the valve boxes. So that'd be at the other end, the proximal end of your drain field. So how's that?
Sounds good. All right, and that's all the questions. So thank you everyone for attending. Really appreciate it. And yeah, I think we're good. Did you guys have anything else to add before we depart?
Keep the trees away.
Yeah.
Keep fat soils and greases out of your
Yeah,
sink.
don't dump any grease down your tank, don't down your sink.
Fat
Don't
soils
put
and
a
greases.
screen in your drain to
Oh.
collect all your food. Then you won't have to worry about your system. You can take care of it. This is a household behavior game.
All right. Have a great night, everyone.
Great.
Great.
Thanks, Rachel.
All
Thanks.
right. Thanks, guys.
Okay, guys.
Good night.